content and censorship is two of the things I really hate in an anime adaptation, especially an anime adaptation that is a bona fide PowerPoint presentation with no movement and it's just colored manga panels, and they can't even color all the manga panels properly. So this individual right here put together everything that was cut from yesterday's episode of One Punch Man, and the amount of content that was cut is actually staggering. I'm going to go over this in just a moment, but before I do, I want everybody to take a hard look at this real quick. This is IMDB. This is a rating site that rates different episodes for many different movies and series, and as you take a peek here, every single episode of One Punch Man Season 3 has not managed to get above a 5.6, and with the latest episode that came out yesterday, it is the lowest rated episode of the entire series, sitting at a 3.3 at this current time period. And what's even crazier is that One Punch Man Season 2, it doesn't even actually reach that level of bad. Like, even the lowest rated episode of One Punch Man Season 2 is way above anything of the ratings of Season 3, which I think really showcases just the overall impression that people are having of Season 3, because look at this. Season 2, for many, many years, has been literally the butt end of a joke. People memed on it, they hated it, they didn't like it, they said it was just an overall step down from everything from Season 1. It was legitimately looked at as a very bad anime season. And if you take a hard look at just the ratings here on IMDb, you have 7.9, 8.3, 8.8, 7.6, 7.3, 7.5, 8.6, you get the point. But when you take a look at Season 3, all the ratings are pretty much just down the board, barely above 5.0. It can't even reach above a 5.6, which is a really bad sign, and I feel like this rating is going to get worse as time goes on. That doesn't even include the stuff on my anime list, which also the rating is still free-falling. It was sitting at like 5.77 a few days ago, but now it's at 5.44, and I feel like as more of these episodes continue to come out, and when the final episode of Season 3 does come out, this rating is probably going to plummet even further. I would not be shocked if One Punch Man gets a very low 4.0, or even maybe even reach into the 3.0 status. I could definitely see it. Now, is One Punch Man worthy enough to be rated as one of the worst rated anime of all time? I don't know. There is definitely a lot of bad anime out there, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, Uzumaki is a really good recent example. Obviously, we have the stuff with X-Arm. You know, there's some bad anime. There is. There is some really bad anime. There's some anime that I am black holing right now and I don't even want to recall because it's just that bad. But, as I said in yesterday's video, I do think that One Punch Man is probably one of the biggest disasters for a high-profile project. And the reason why we know it is a big disaster is because we gotta look at some recent news that came out lately when it comes to Demon Slayer, for instance. Demon Slayer is making almost $700 million in its actual box office debut. That is almost $1 billion of revenue since it released as a movie. Chainsaw Man is getting close to $200 million. And this is in a time period where anime is booming, everybody wants to watch anime. And the fact that One Punch Man is just doing this bad, it's very clear from the very beginning that this series, or this anime, was destined to fail because there was not enough time and love given to it. Now, I'm not going to retread everything I've already said before, but what I'm trying to say is that One Punch Man is an embarrassing anime that is legitimately making everyone that's associated with this project look bad, and I feel like there's a lot of people that might not ever want to work on anime again thanks to this project. I could be wrong there, but that's just my general assumption. So let's get back into what I initially started this video with, and that is the cut content in the censorship. So the red X's indicate what was cut out from the chapters, basically either reformatted in a different way, or just straight up not even shown in the episode. And you might recall at the beginning of the episode for episode 6, you did see the centipede, but the thing is that you didn't have this zoom out shot, because when you look at the movement of this panel, it starts off like this, and then it slowly zooms outward to show the entire cast sitting at the table and having a meeting, which is really interesting because this panel really showcases a dynamic of movement, which is hilarious to say, but it shows more movement than even the episode did. And I think that is embarrassing that the actual still frame manga chapter of One Punch Man looks like it's moving more than the still frames from an actual anime. That's embarrassing. But anyways, you go up to the right, you also see that there's more cut content. For instance, he didn't appear in the scene. You just had, Child Emperor appear in one scene. If you go even further, you will see that, you have the hand raising. For instance, the animators didn't want to even showcase a hand being raised because obviously that would be too taxing for animation. Then you have another scene where, he's cut out as well, the picture. And then obviously we continue. You have the cigarette that's also cut out within multiple panels, and even of him smoking as well, with even blowing smoke out of his mouth. That is completely censored, which this one goes into censorship territory. So let's talk about that. So Zombie Man here is very well known for smoking. He smokes a lot in the manga. In his introduction, basically, where he's really getting acquainted in the manga, you're getting acquainted with his character, you see him smoke. And obviously, the very dynamic of him smoking is to indicate that he's more of this edgy, mysterious, dark-toned character that might not fully play by the rules maybe sometimes. That's at least the impression you might get of his character early on. And the entire smoking dynamic just showcases what type of character he is. He's more of a mature guy. Everything about him is a little bit different than the other heroes you could see within the room. And you can see that multiple panels of him smoking or holding a cigarette is actually completely removed from the episode of One Punch Man Season 3. And the reason why I think this is, I'm just going to get right into it, it's because of censorship. It's 100% that's the reason. I mean, there is examples of anime having characters smoke that has been censored. I remember Jotaro from JoJo Part 3. He had the cigarette, actually just censored completely out at one point. I mean, obviously, you have the iconic scenes with 4Kids, adapting One Piece. Like, when they were doing the dub and localization, they changed Sanji's cigarette into a lollipop. So obviously, this type of censorship has happened in the past. This isn't the first time something like this has happened in anime, but those are examples that appear in my mind. The point is that I don't know necessarily the broadcasting regulations for, Japan when it comes to smoking. I could be wrong here, but I believe a lot of characters have smoked, even in just regular broadcasting anime, so I feel like it's kind of weird not to animate a cigarette, because this feels like it's actually censorship. But there could be another reason for it. The reason for why it might not even be in these panels is because animating fire flickering was too much. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not. I mean, we have all seen these last 6 episodes. We have seen the corners cut and what has been cut for trying to showcase as little movement as possible, jumping from one scene to the next. And so it's very obvious that maybe it's not just censorship reasons, they just did not want to animate the smoke effect or the fire flickering from the lighter and try to make it look good, because most likely they would have to rely on CGI, which would made the scene look even worse than it already did, so they probably did the easiest thing by just simply not showing it whatsoever, and that was what they kind of went with. But there's other little side profiles that show different perspective shots, getting to see the other heroes at the table and all that is completely cut, that you don't get to see, kind of showcasing a little bit more of the conversation around the table. And if you recall watching the episode yesterday, a lot of the characters were pretty much stiff, not moving, and it was really only focusing on Child Emperor, and it really just showed him talking. It was just like a still frame sitting there back and forth between characters, not really showing multiple characters whatsoever, or a zoomed out POV shot. It was mainly just an up-close personal perspective, and I feel like more or less this showcases corners being cut, not wanting to do different POV shots and different angles of the characters, because obviously the production and the animators just don't have time to really do it. But carrying on, you can obviously see more dynamics and different interactions where characters butt in with the conversation, completely excluded from the episode. For instance, like you have characters not appearing in the shots or whatever, like this one where Child Emperor is like curious, like, you can see characters like My Mask is not being shown in it. If you carry forward, you obviously get back to the censorship here with the smoking, but like the different zoom out shots of people around the table is just not shown. You just have the close up zoomed in shots of the characters that are shown within the episode, and they don't want to do any dynamic, showcasing of side profiles or anything like that. The next few pages are also roughly pretty much the exact same thing. You have character side profiles behind, seeing what's going on with them. The zoom outs and stuff like that are obviously not shown because it would be just too taxing to draw all this and animate this, because let's be honest, it would just be a still frame. You could just see in general that there was a lot of corners cut not to have as much movement as possible for the scene, and just had it be a straight up conversation, which is really sad. Because conversation scenes can be very good. If you do a good conversation scene with good movement and animation, rotating around the characters talking, have a dynamic camera showcasing like a 3D looking shot around everybody, you can have a really good talking scene. I've definitely seen it in a lot of different anime, but once again, this is an indication that when it came to this entire meeting with the heroes, discussing what they need to do next, they wanted to make it as simple as possible, and so they chose to cut certain things because they just didn't want to have to animate it, which is just really showing so many issues that Season 3 really has had since the very beginning. But getting into some more interesting stuff, let's get further in, we have stuff like this. So you can just, besides the obvious downgrade of some of the art, especially with some of the heroes here, and then the censorship with some of the outfits that we've seen in the anime. You can see that some dialogue as well has kind of been cut too. For instance, like said King in his energetic voice, but his eyes were those of a dead man. Like, you can see that there's a lot of dialogue cut too. It's not just, let's say, dynamic camera, pannings and stuff like that. It's dialogue that has legitimately been removed from the episode. And then you go even further, you see introductions of characters not even showcased as well in the anime, not properly introduced when they can be relevant or interesting in the future. And the fact that you don't even have them properly introduced with all their dialogue or anything is relatively sad, honestly. It just showcases how pressed for time Season 3 is, and that it's not even just the bad anime adaptation with no animation, but it's not even adapting all the content. You could just see that it's also trying to rush through content, which this gets into the next discussion I briefly mentioned yesterday, and that is Season 3 has a pacing problem. It does. A lot of people have talked about it, and it was an issue inherently with the manga. Like, when this was getting adapted, or when the manga was coming out, these chapters, a lot of people were complaining that One Punch Man felt very slow-paced at the time. That's the truth. I remember it, and it was definitely something a lot of people were having. And I do think that all this content being added into the episodes would make the slow pacing feel even more slow. But the problem here is that it wouldn't necessarily be bad if it was slow pacing, is if the animation and art was able to keep up and keep you engaged with the, the stuff. But the fact is it's not. It's not engaging because the conversations are very flat. You might as well read the manga, because the manga has legitimately more movement going on in it than even the anime, which is just a sad thing to say. But let's continue forward. We also have, actually, I want to back up here. In the anime, by the way, they messed this man's mask up. I don't know how many of you know this, but I might put a picture on the screen. I don't know if I will. We'll see upon editing. But this man's mask right here, it has like ESP. They actually put it as OOP. They put EOOP instead of ESP here. And I feel like this is an error. For instance, they looked at the S probably on his mask, and they were like, oh, this is probably, 2 O's. And that's what they did. But, yeah, they messed up the wording even on his mask, which shows the quality control is not even there right now. That there's people that are messing up just simple words on a mask and stuff, and not even really cross-checking if it's A-OK or not. So, yeah, you can even see, like, art errors that's continuously happening within the show. Obviously, you have the zoom-out shots of some of the heroes as well, with some movement not being shown, because obviously you would have the characters reacting and getting angry and all that, and we can't have any movement in Season 3. That's just way too hard. We can't do that. But, you go even further, you can see, like, King walking into the door. Obviously, you would have this type of movement where he walks in and all that, and how he leans in to look around. Once again, you can't have this type of movement, because if you did, it would just be too taxing and too hard to have it in anime. So, yeah, that's why we couldn't have King open the door in the episode. Just too much time. It would take way too much time. You have this hallway scene, him looking down the hallway as well, making sure nobody followed him back to the room. And then he obviously gets scared, because obviously Silver Fang is there. But, yeah, you gotta love these different shots here that they just didn't even bother to add into the anime. You go even further, you get a little bit more of the side profile of the heroes. Didn't get that, just a full conversation with Silver Fang and King. And you never get to see these heroes really shown whatsoever. Obviously, more stuff cut right here. Keep going further. You have characters even removed from this iconic shot. Like, you have this ninja man here. He's completely removed. You don't even see him. There's a few other characters that's removed here in the background. And obviously, that's not even mentioning the downgrade of the art, which I talked about yesterday in my yesterday's video. But, yeah, there's characters just straight up removed from this page that was adapted into the anime. Then you got stuff like this, which this is one of the areas I talked about a lot in my video when it came to the art downgrade in its entirety. So I think nothing really spells out the issue with the anime right now than just them not even wanting to showcase walking. This is a close-up shot of just walking with legs, like Genos walking. They couldn't even be bothered to do that. And I think it really shows a lot when you really pay attention to the episodes that they are fearful of showing anything below the shoulders. There is multiple times throughout the episodes, if you pay close attention, that they try to circumvent even panning the camera down to do a wide shot of their whole body. And if they do, it's usually a zoom out to where there could be as little detail as possible to the characters because they're so far away from the foreground of the actual scene of the episode. And I feel like this is a big indication that they are just very fearful to have any movement whatsoever in these episodes. Like, they couldn't even be bothered to add a walking scene, a brief, like, 1 or 2 walking animation. They couldn't even do that. And that's not even including, like I said, the art downgrades. But then we get into this. The Fubuki and, Genos, like, talking to each other and how they go into Saitama's apartment. You could actually see panel by panel of what they cut while they were talking. Because if you remember, you have Genos and Fubuki talking, and it's just a close-up frame of Fubuki with a very low detailed background. And you just see them talking, and then you can see this slight movement, like she's bobbing a little bit. But they're actually going up the stairs. And they literally cut the whole thing. They don't even want to show her dress. They don't want to show Genos walking. They just do a complete zoom in on her character and don't show anything else, which I've been saying it already multiple times in this video, but they couldn't be bothered to animate this because it would just show way too much movement. Then you get into this, you have a bunch of different perspective shots completely cut as well. Not want to show it. They also remove dialogue here with, how long Saitama's been gone or the water on the counter and stuff like that. I mean, you could see a bunch of panels here that's completely cut that was supposed to be at the end of the episode but not even shown, and these will not be added back because of the scene that's after the end credits of the episode. So you won't ever see stuff like this. This is completely gone and will never appear again. This is a lot of different character introductions and interactions with a bunch of different heroes that have now been basically permanently lost. Then that gets into this scene right here, this final scene of the episode where you see Tatsumaki going up against, this monster, and you can see Pretty Prisoner, he's completely removed from the scene. He's not even there, which I guess they wanted to showcase or focus on Tatsumaki's fight. Fair, that's fine. I wouldn't necessarily be bothered by this one, necessarily. But the problem is there's a lot of corners cut throughout the episode to showcase that they really did not want to add as much detail as possible. So yeah, that is more or less what was cut from the episode. So you have cut content, censorship, dialogue removed, downgrade of art. That's not including just the lack of movement. It's just, the more that happens for this anime I see come out, the more it's depressing, man. It's like we're watching a train wreck get worse and worse. Like, it's already crashed, but now we're just seeing, like, the crash just escalate. Like, we're seeing, like, earthquakes happening now. We're seeing tornadoes rain down from the sky, lightning striking on the train. That's what we're basically seeing. We're seeing, like, the full-blown apocalypse right now for this anime adaptation, and it's getting worse. And it is the fall-off for One Punch Man could be studied for generations of what not to do with a popular IP. Because this is a perfect example of what not to do. It really is, but here we are. I'll leave it at that, though. I really want to talk about this because I thought this was fascinating. Getting to see just the discrepancies and the corners cut. I might do a follow-up video of this. For instance, like, if you guys like this video, I might do another video talking about the next episode and showcasing the comparisons of what's different from the anime and manga. I might do that. But for now, I'll leave it there. I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.